Hello. So, um, First, some commercial announcements. Some people have asked why I wasn't at North Estuary this weekend. I was actually at something else, which my cousin, hey Garth, um, who I very much respect, invited me to, and it was an excellent experience, even though I'm still in physical pain over it. There was actually optional physical uh, exertion involved. Um, I don't want to say too much about exactly what I did there. It, Here, I will let them speak for themselves. So I was at Fall Mountain 2024, September 13th through 15th. And um, yeah, there's stuff. I think somewhere around here they called it an experimental experience. Um, and it's a men's retreat. And it was excellent. It was absolutely excellent. I learned a lot. Um, I highly recommend it, and I wouldn't want to reduce any of the surprise factor for anyone. Um, it was hello, Orthodox Boomer Grandma. I You still haven't replied to my email. Um, but I highly recommend it. It From everything that I have seen, it is an excellent organization that actually I think really exemplifies. What are you scared of? You come on. Here. If you want, I don't think you'll come on, but here's the StreamYard link. We're going to be talking about. I jokingly wrote Matisyahu Pageau, because I didn't know how to spell. I went full Ashkenazi pronunciation of the Hebrew. Matisyahu. Yeah, I figured. Um, anyway, just as far as remarkable men's practice, really, I mean, I was very impressed. I It's the type of thing I think I certainly aspire to with my work, and they have been apparently like the seeds of their thing has been. I also spelled Paul wrong. No, I spelled it correctly. Um, has been growing since the 90s and even beforehand. Um, and Obviously, they've taken a lot of much older wisdom. So I just thought I would mention that. You can go to their website and stuff. Although I have to say, I the one thing as I was leading, I spoke to briefly to somebody who is very involved in their organization, and I said, I don't know if you guys are ready for the exponential growth that I anticipate you will eventually have. Um, yeah, as people experience what is there, I think be a lot more people also wanting to experience and recommending it. And I mean, I have my criticisms. I have my the way I would do things differently, but being as involved with this organization as my time allows, because they're actually very very um, they're very active. Yeah, I could not give. I It would be rare for me to give a higher endorsement of an organization and a weekend than this. I think I paid like $700. They also have I paid $699, and they will actually work with you if you can't afford it. Frankly, having been there and having organized events and been involved in the organization of events, there's no way $699 covered my experience. There is no way what happened could have. They are operating at a loss if their only source of income is this experience. Now they might have other things later that they end up charging people. I don't know, but was that I paid for it for 1 week. Okay, so that's enough of them. I came for captioned Matisyahu, fake news. Orthodox boomer grandma says, Elias, I believe that's your husband, could have died last week. Rahman al-Islam, low sodium, HR 39 BPM, and couldn't stand up. We forgot to put salt in our food after we started eating clean for Great Lent last spring. Please be careful, and I wish you all the best. I came for captioned Matisyahu fake news. Matisyahu will come after one more commercial announcement, which is Father Stephen DeYoung has provided me with a link to where you can pre-order his book, Saint Paul, Pharisee Apostle to the Nations, to all nations, sorry, on Amazon for $20.95. I'm not sure if you get it cheaper at directly through, I believe it's Ancient Faith, which is Ancient Faith Publishing, which is publishing it. You probably you could probably get it cheaper there. This is not an affiliate link. If you or Father Stephen, who I'm guessing will watch this, wants to donate any of the proceeds to Fountain of Comfort, you may do so. I will say, even ask me for a blurb. What I will say is, for Christian, and in fact any Christian who wants to contextualize Paul of Tarsus in a way that is less despicable, disgusting, blasphemous, sacrilegious, then I believe, I believe people throughout Christian history have done so, and B, I actually believe I can't say. I mean, I believe it's actually how he was. I do believe he was sacrilegious, blasphemous, degenerate. Is that a good word? Degenerate. And obviously, like all degeneracy and evil, God created him too, right? And me too. But I personally do not buy the very nice story that Father Stephen tells about Paul of Tarsus, Baal of Tarsus, as I like to call him. But Father Stephen, hello, Rabbi Amulet. Hello, my dear Chazi. Hello, my dear David, and everybody else who is thing. Degenerate how? Degenerate as in he took the Holy Torah and he he distilled its pure wine into a punch. Yes. Orthodox Boomer Grandma. If you were not aware, I am not a fan of Paul of Tarsus. This has actually been a part of my discussions with Father Stephen, pretty much since the beginning of our when he watched some of my videos, and so good. Yeah. So Father Stephen did allow me to see an early draft of this book. Yes, we know you're an Orthodox Christian, Boomer Grandma. Most just people who listen to my channel are Orthodox Christian. Anyway, so Father Stephen did allow me to take a look at his an early draft of the book. I did. For me, the most interesting parts was how much Orthodox Christianity does claim to be an inheritor of, thank you, Clint, of Gamliel. This is Gamliel the First, not who is popularly known as Rabban Gamliel. It is, I mean, it's in the Christian Bible that Paul was a disciple of Gamliel the First. I don't believe it. I think Acts 5 proves that he couldn't have been. In fact, I think Robert Eisenman probably was more correct in his formulation. I have done a book review, but this is just because the book is now available. Anyway, I did a book review, but I would actually be very interested in reading that draft, Grandma. So anyway, having read it, I think it's probably going to be Father Stephen's most influential book, and I think it's likely going to be the book that people keep around as opposed to Alexandra. I will try to remember that, Alexandra. Or I could call you Dr. Union if you really insist. I am big on calling people by their formal names. I should stop getting distracted by the chat. I think this is definitely going to be the most influential of Father Stephen's books, and it's going to be the book that you may want to actually own your own copy of, as opposed to read and pass on. I don't like the term false teacher. I think Paul genuinely believed what he taught. Just like I think Father Stephen genuinely believes what he teaches about Paul of Tarsus, and I genuinely believe, right? I'm probably wrong. I don't trust my. If you have questions, please feel free to ask Rabbi Breitowitz. I highly recommend it. Yeah, Rabbi Breitowitz, many rabbis, including Hazi, I hate to say. No, no, I don't think Father DeYoung is degenerate, because I don't think Father DeYoung um, is taking great wine and watering it down. I think he's doing the opposite. That's what I mean by degenerate. Yeah, you can be creating something. You can be generate in that you take things and you improve them, or you can be degenerate, as in you can take things um, and I guess consume them. Not that Torah can be consumed, but I believe that um, Paul of Tarsus was very much like a veil or a shade, which allowed people to stand more in the light than they were, but not in the fullness of the light. And that may, in fact, have been a great accomplishment, probably greater than any of my accomplishments. But at the same time, um, I look forward to the veil being lifted. Anyway, back to the book. So, if you want to have a narrative of Paul, which is not the narrative that Martin Luther and I agree on, which Father Stephen very much disagrees on, Father Stephen's description of Paul, Father Stephen's understanding of Paul, something that is more broadly referred to as Paul within Judaism, is Paul within Judaism. It is a view that does not make him a foe of God and holiness and Israel. And I think that's what Father Stephen means by this title, Saint Paul, the Pharisee, Jewish apostle to all nations. Um, I, I, I would like to believe that what he says is correct. But just because I would like to believe it doesn't mean that I have permission to believe it. Because frankly, I think Martin Luther and what I would say is most of Christianity for most of history did understand Paul of Tarsus correctly. He was the man. I mean, whatever word you want to use, um, he stood against God. Thank you for the permission. Okay, so that's the first part of the book. The second part of the book, which is Father Stephen's personal free translation of the letters of Paul. And he has tried to interpret Paul in a way that isn't as disgusting to someone who believes in God as I believe normally reading the letters of Paul should be, could be, and would be. If you believe in the God who revealed himself at Sinai, the Paul I have encountered in his letters is a charlatan, a cheat, a polytheist, and just a horrible human being. Now, Father Stephen's translation tries to change that. So, for example, the one part that Father Stephen pointed out to me clearly was there's that place, I believe it's in 1 Corinthians 9, where Paul says, sarcastically asks a question, does God care about animals? And the presumed answer to the rhetorical, sarcastic question is God does not care about animals, which shows I don't want to black pill you, Dr. Union. If your faith is weak, I highly recommend you spend it elsewhere. I don't want to be I don't want to trespass on anyone's religiosity, but yeah, this is not the place necessarily to have your faith affirmed. And certainly I invite you to speak to Father Stephen about his counterpoints to me. Yeah. But he says he presumes in 1 Corinthians 9 that God does not care about animals. And which makes me think he was not only not trained under Gamliel, not any sort of Pharisee. I don't think them, if he was Jewish, which I don't know, I don't think he was a no. See, this is Aristo. You are coming from a very different view. I mean, your view, frankly, we could discuss later. But so if he actually thinks God doesn't doesn't care about animals, then Paul was not Jewish, was not a Pharisee, was not somebody who believed in God. And what a Protestant would tell you is, yeah, God doesn't care about animals. And bye, Dr. Union. Good night. I wish Elias well. May God give him all a manner of hatzlacha, of success. Father Stephen's translation of that verse is, does God care just about animals? Because he doesn't want to allow for what I believe is actually what Paul meant. And you can decide for yourself by reading that text whether or not Paul meant to say the things that certainly Martin Luther and a lot of other people understood Paul to be saying. Yeah, there's definitely other people. I don't know Dr. Steve Mason, but to James Tabor. This has become, I would say, somewhat dominant in academic circles. And Father Stephen is providing a counterpoint to the standard narrative, which leads to someone who believes in the God of Israel completely rejecting Paul of Tarsus and Pauline Christianity in general. Okay, so that's Father Stephen's book. And so the translation, I think, is going to be incredibly powerful and influential. Hello, Tayo. Hello, Matthew. Aren't you supposed to be? I guess Northwest Jewelry is also done. I hope you had fun. I'm guessing you're flying back home to Texas, and making plans to move to Los Angeles. Okay, so that is the Father Stephen news on Paul of, or as I like to call him, Baal of Tarsus. And then, and the reason I decided to do, well, one of the reasons I decided to do a live stream is somebody asked me about this video, which I am going to put in the links. Now, what was the passage on animals from 1 Corinthians 9? Let me make sure that it is 1 Corinthians 9. 1 Corinthians 9:9. For it is written in the law of Moses, thou shalt not muzzle the mouth of the ox that treadeth out the corn. Doth God take care for oxen? He asks sarcastically, like a pagan who thinks that God doesn't care about the oxen. And yeah, Bolus Habibi, yes. Okay, and in this video, our good friend Matisyahu Pageau, so I didn't know how to spell Matthew, and the Hebrew of Matthew is Matisyahu or Matisyahu, and Matisyahu is the Ashkenazi way of saying Matisyahu or Matthew. Yes, God obviously does care for oxen and animals. And if you go ahead and understand that in your reading of 1 Corinthians 9, you end up with, I believe, a rejection of Paul as someone who does not understand the Jewish scriptures. If you, and that's why Father Stephen translates that verse, not what was the language? Doth God take care for oxen? That is the King James. But does God care just for oxen or animals or whatever he did, right? So so on to Matthew Pageau. Apparently, Matthew Pageau, our good friend Matisyahu here, starts talking about Judaism about 2 hours and 20 minutes in. I am going to start a little bit earlier because I don't want to miss context. And I have not watched this before, so you are going to see me live stream my reaction. The weekend I was at, we were not allowed phones and watches the entirety of the weekend. It's a good 48 hours, I think. 48 hours. No phone, no watch, and frankly, as I said at the beginning, excellent experience, but I'm making up for it. Here is what Mathieu Pageau says.
Don't accumulate during the week, but at the end of the week, you gather double portion of manna. And this one won't rot because it's reserved for the future. So this double portion, again, is to allow for the Sabbath to happen, and you have a solution to that problem of resting, because when you rest, you don't produce, you don't have food. So it's similar to that. So what I'm trying to do is go and get the riddle that we lost, that we neglected, show it before it's too late, show it before it's time to answer these riddles. So why am I not talking about Christianity? Like I said, because if I talk about it now before I even myself understand the riddle, it's just going to look like everyone else is attacking Christianity. It's just going to look like I'm questioning everything, questioning Christianity.
Ooh, I like where this is going. I was not aware. So, and a lot of people have had questions about Mathieu Pageau and his relationship with Judaism and Christianity. People, I mean, it's obvious that he's definitely looked into rabbinic sources. I don't know where he is. There are people who have claimed that he's some sort of Noahide. Uh, oh, my messianic uh my messianic aspirations and hopes, uh like the dominoes falling, Matthew, Jonathan, Jordan, Joe Rogan, President Trump, you know. But yeah, that's up to God. But I like this domino falling, if it's falling.
But I'm not really. I'm finding the question. I'm trying to find the original question that Christ answers. That's what I'm doing. So that's the answer to why I don't talk about Christianity. It's the opposite of thinking that Christianity is wrong. It's thinking that we took it for granted, basically.
I would, in a sense, agree with him. If and apparently he starts talking about Paul soon. So if he's talking about rejecting Pauline Christianity, Matthew, my boy, let us speak.
And because of it, we didn't practice, we didn't practice unlocking the original lock, then we lost it. So the lock that I'm looking for is very complex. And it's part of it is not our fault, why we lost the lock, because when Christ was rejected, in his time, he was rejected, right, by people. So
That's not so obvious. That is, I think, if you are taking the version of the gospel, certainly the Gospel of John has that view. I have spoken extensively with Father Stephen about this. I think that the idea that Jesus was rejected by the Jewish people is obviously silly, and I'll tell you why. Which Jewish people? Like, if you want to say, like, how do you even, like, that whole idea, like, it is a very weird way of looking at Jewish history, right? So we have always had the Jews who worshipped Baal and the Jews who worshipped God, and we always had our prophets, Elijah, right, who spoke and tried to save the faithful remnant. The faithful remnant is the faithful remnant. That is what is truly to be referred to as Israel. So the idea of Israel rejecting God, which is what the Gospel of John preaches, is inherently as, can I put it in a less inflammatory yet equally expressive way? I don't think I can. Idiotic as the idea of deicide, right? Once you make the charge of deicide, if you hear the word deicide, right? What does that word mean? It means killing God. If you do not laugh at the idea, I guess you might, like, the idea might inspire horror. um I mean, it's so absurd to kill God, to kill the living God, right? It is the definition of oxymoron. the death of God, right? Chai Hashem, right? God is life. The idea of God dying is just silly. Which is why the funny thing is, there's a Christian heresy of patripassianism, which is the idea that God the Father suffered when Jesus died on the cross, which is a Christian blasphemy, but a Jewish belief. It's a Christian heresy, but it's a Jewish belief, right? God suffers as we suffer, to the degree that God can suffer in how God suffers, whatever that means, right? But dies. Anyway, how did I get onto the absurdity of, and so that absurdity of the word deicide is similar to the absurdity of the idea of Israel rejecting God, right? And yes, the Bible talks this narrative, but the narrative is, no, you can't reject me. That's not possible. You have no capacity, right? This may be the only part of Tulip I agree with, is irresistible grace, right? In Judaism, and clearly since the times of the Mishnah, we have believed that very few people are capable of earning their way into damnation. You have to work really, really hard in Judaism to be damned. I'm not saying nobody does it. I believe at least some people have done it. I believe most people are hubristic in their pretension that they have a capacity to do it. You are not the worst of sinners. You may have enough ego to imagine you are the worst of sinners, but you are not. Okay, so back to the idea of this Christian idea of the possibility of Israel rejecting God. No. Now, do I believe that Jesus was betrayed by many, many Jews? Yeah, oh yeah, I do. I believe that there were definitely many, many Jews who died at the hands of the Romans because they were betrayed by Jews. Many innocent and good people. And Jesus, as a manifestation of that, as a single archetype of the innocent Jew who was betrayed by all and sundry to be killed by the Romans, and that this was an abomination before God, right? The Hebrew Bible says talui etz, right? It's basically, you could say, I mean, where's that verse? Where is that Deuteronomy 21, 22 through 23. Let's pull that up in the Hebrew. Deuteronomy 21. There we go. וכי יהיה באיש חטא משפט מוות, והומת ותלית אותו על עץ, לא תלין נבלתו על העץ, כי קבור תקברנו ביום ההוא, כי קללת אלוקים תלוי, ולא תטמא את אדמתך Asher Hashem Elokecha Noten Lecha Nachala. Now, this is a very interesting idea because it is to hang a person by a tree is not one of the ways that people are put to death. Although apparently Rashi says this applies to somebody who was stoned, who was then hung. Interesting. Sanhedrin 45b. Repeat the stoning. Strangled. Yeah, but Tolui Etz, right? Like, we don't do that. That's not a Jewish manner of execution. I'm trying to see if I'll have to research that later. Oh, there we go. Gemara. The Mishnah teaches that the corpse of all who are killed by stoning are hung after their death. The sages taught in a Braita. Okay, so that's where they get it. But it was not a Jewish manner of execution. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer, and the halacha is always as Rabbi Eliezer. I'll have to take a look at this. It's at the bottom of Sanhedrin 45b. Okay, back to where we were with Monsieur Pageau. Where were we? Monsieur Pageau. Where is Monsieur Pageau? There is Monsieur Pageau. Let me take a look at all people's notes. Where? Oh, wow. There's been a lot of. So something interesting. Should plow and hope seems like a gnat. I have no idea what you're saying. It's strange theology. You do bad work to not read the next sentence. Poor form, old man. I don't think there's any points. Yeah, or say, oh, I guess, yeah. That even furthers my point. Or saith he altogether for our sakes. For our sakes, no doubt, this is written. Yeah, you are correct. The next line is even more. Yeah, sorry. Sounds culty. I'm not sure what you mean, Rabbi. In late, what are we talking about? We were talking about Baal of Tarsus. He says some interesting things about Adam and Eve earlier. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch all 2 hours of that. There's a lot of people watching. Yeah, that's all bullshit. It's en vogue to hate on Paul. It is, but that's because Paul was an abominable human being. And requires a deeper understanding of, and from them likewise, I will take some to be Levitical priests Yes, Chazi, we know your little thing. Um, good night, and yes, I did read it, Clint. Thank you. um, Absurdity will save the world, Mekmosav. No, laughing at absurdity will do it. Khalil Andani roasted WLC on that yesterday. Patripassianism or deicide? I'm guessing deicide. Khalil Andani is a smart man. Kenosis explained in Philippians 2 6 through 7. I have no idea what you're talking about, Emily. Sorry. When was that declared? Patripassianism? Oh, you gotta, yeah, you gotta look it up. I'm not a huge. Ryan knows. Patripassianism was declared a heresy with Sabellianism. Okay. How can Patripassianism be a Christian heresy? If Jesus is God and they are one, Father, yet we say distinct from each other, same, not same. Yeah, exactly. That's how, yeah. Jacob was one of them. The heresies? Many Christians have rejected Jesus. Risto, yeah. Many Christians have a view of Jesus that is not worthy of him. Cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree. Yes, that's the verse we were looking at. Off topic. Is the Septuagint or the Masoretic text more accurate? Risto, you really have not been watching this channel very much. I highly recommend the 6-hour Greek Bible study with Father Stephen. The introduction to the first Greek Bible study that we had on my channel and on a different channel. Tim Burkhart has been very busy, and unfortunately, the good professor of linguistics who was teaching us about the Greek Bible, I believe he has passed on. God should have mercy on his soul. He was a nice man, and I'm sure God will have mercy on his soul. I hope. Yeah, he got very sick, and I'm pretty sure he passed away. If I am wrong, I will be happy to be. I will be ecstatic to be wrong, actually. But anyway, watch that 6-hour stream in which we make it quite clear how idiotic anybody who thinks the Septuagint is a more accurate text than the Masoretic text is. There are some far-flung and weird Eastern Orthodox people who have such beliefs. I do not believe any major denomination of Christians, certainly not the Catholic Church, not any mainstream patriarchate in the Eastern Orthodox Church, not any mainstream or largely known or accepted Protestant denomination. Certainly not, I would say, the Assyrian. I don't know about the. I would be surprised if the Armenians and the Copts. Do you know if the Copts say MT over Septuagint or backwards, or the other way around?
MT over Septuagint.
Masoretic text, Septuagint. Uh, I am not aware that the Copts but it's yeah. I don't think anybody who knows both Hebrew and Greek could. I am not aware of anyone who actually knows Hebrew and Greek and believes in the Septuagint is more accurate than the Masoretic text since we have found the Dead Sea Scrolls. Just gotta tune in for some Hebrew. I agree. it's the leaving them overnight that incurs the curse, isn't it? No, actually. You don't leave it overnight. I mean, as I read the text, yeah. Ki kilat Elohim talui velo tetame. Yeah, it says that it is the hanging which is the curse. I mean, that's explicit in the text. Or leave them overnight that defiles them. Rabbi Fowler thinks that the gospel trial narrative was meant to reflect the trial of Carabas in against Flaccus by Philo. I have no idea who any of those people you talked about were, but as usual, Elijah knows more than I do about everything. Meaning people are more important than animals. No, that's obviously not the meaning I think you can get out of 1 Corinthians 9. I don't know Greek. Possibly every single translation I have seen is a mistranslation, but it seems pretty clear to me that 1 Corinthians 9 is repeating the presuppositions of a Greek polytheist who cannot comprehend the greatness of the God of Israel. It is a shocking betrayal of the basic values of Judaism to ask the question that he does in the manner that he does. Now, I am guessing some people, I have heard many people say, no, Paul didn't mean it for himself. He was speaking to his audience, and it was his audience who were Gentiles and had presuppositions which were completely contrary and opposed to everything that Judaism teaches. You can figure that out for yourself. I have not been convinced. Okay. Rashi also makes sure to clarify that it's a living tree, Elon, and not a dead tree, with regard to 3 angels visiting Abraham. You mean the Talui? Yeah, I'm not a. Yeah, I actually probably should look that stuff up. Not very knowledgeable. Shaheen, long time no see. How have you been? I think the only thing more accurate in Septuagint is the Genesis 5 genealogy. I don't see any reason to believe that. Of course, I believe in the Masorah, so that's a whole other thing. The Orthodox Study Bible translates from the Septuagint. I am not sure that is true. I am not sure any translation, any modern translation, certainly not, as I understand it, the Orthodox Study Bible starts with the King James Version and makes adjustments. The King James Version was translated from the Rabbinic Bible, the Masoretic text, as was printed by Daniel Bomberg, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And so it is the Rabbinic Bible which forms, as far as I know, the basis for basically every English translation we have. There is one translation which is specifically a translation of the Septuagint. My good friend Justin at Archangels. I highly recommend all of our Orthodox friends get involved with his channel and his community. He is officially the sister Eastern Orthodox Discord community to my Jewish community. he is a huge advocate and actually personal friend of the man who translated from the Septuagint to the English. And it is available free online, his translation. It is called, I believe, the Septuagint translation or something like that. And it's available in many volumes. And Justin also does that. Is 1 Corinthians 9 a big deal for you? The entirety of 1 Corinthians 9, I have long said that if I were to ever write a play and Satan were to appear in that play, I would give him lines exclusively out of 1 Corinthians 9. I cannot imagine a more clear explication of everything Jews do not believe from beginning to end than the entirety of the chapter of 1 Corinthians 9. Too bad Paul lived from peak paganism. Rip. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Orthodox Study Bible is New King James New Testament and a new Septuagint translation in the style of NKJV. That is very surprising to me. I am not aware that this is a first thing for me. Paul could have learned a thing or two from Porphyry. I believe you. I don't know Porphyry. So our good friend Elijah is giving us an actual citation to our good friend Wikipedia, which we believe implicitly. I guess I will have to go to this Wikipedia and see what Wikipedia has to say, because we all know how reliable it is. Translation. The original edition of the OSB, released in 1993, included only the New Testament and Psalms, both NKJV. Priest Seraphim Johnson criticized the use of the NKJV translation, particularly for the Psalms. The 1993 edition was also criticized by Archimandrite Ephraim for its commentary feeling more evangelical than Orthodox. The NKJV text of the Psalms was replaced in 2008 edition by the Psalms of the new OSB translation of the Old Testament. The 2008 OSB's Old Testament is a translation of the Septuagint developed by St. Athanasius Academy of Orthodox Theology. The translation is based upon Alfred Rolfe's edition of the Septuagint, using the NKJV as the base text, being altered where different from the Septuagint, and the Brenton edition as additional reference material. Is Brenton? I think Brenton, or Alfred Rolfe. I think Alfred Rolfe maybe. I don't know who Justin's friend is. The 2008 OSB's New Testament is the NKJV, which translates the Textus Receptus used by EO churches. So I guess they did do what they did is they took the NKJV and they made changes to it based on the Septuagint. I am guessing, the question becomes which Septuagint. I mean, are you talking just the word Septuagint refers to the 5 books of Moses? What exactly those differences are, but yeah, they took a translation of the Masoretic text and they appended it. Yeah, I mean, well, here, can I find the Orthodox Study Bible online? you have the Orthodox. Can you bring me the Orthodox Study Bible, please? Let's look at Psalm 22:1. Because while all Christians will say funny things about Psalm 22, I believe 12 or 14, Ka'ari, as opposed to Ka'ori, the first line, I think you have to be kind of crazy to go with the Septuagint over what is the obvious text. Psalm 22. Psalm 22. Oh, what is Psalm 22 in?
Might be 23.
Yeah. Psalm. It's Psalm 21. So Psalm 21 in the Orthodox Study Bible, Psalm 23, 2 in the Jewish Bible, or a normal Bible. O God, for the end, concerning help in the morning. Ayelet HaShachar, help in the morning? A Psalm of David. O God, my God, hear me. Why have you forsaken me? The words of my transgressions are far from my salvation. Yeah, I don't understand how a Christian could possibly be believing that this is the final words of Moses, of Jesus. What transgressions? The Masoretic text has shagati, and it's obvious that the person who is translating to the Septuagint we have thought he was reading shagagti, either because that's the text he had. More likely, shagati is a more rare word than shagagti, which shagag is a root that's all over the Bible, whereas shaga, to roar, is much more rare. Yeah, I guess they are going with the Septuagint, but I'm guessing they only bothered with those things that are theologically relevant because that's what Christians do. I have a very nice video on Christian Bibles lie to you. Do you guys want to see Andrew's pretty face? Yes, Don. Andrew has become homeless.
Dun, dun, dun.
He is couch surfing, and he has been for months now.
1 month now.
Yeah, and one of these days, I am actually going to kick him out of my apartment.
Yeah. Well, I'm setting up with Max.
You are?
Yeah.
I wonder what your parents are going to think about that.
No one has to.
Yeah, they might be watching, you know.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. They probably would have tuned out by now. Of course, it is a Sunday night, and yeah, your parents are your parents, and all they have in the world is you.
God help them.
God help them. Amen.
God help them.
Amen. Amen. Yes. Okay. It's happening meme. What's happening? I have no idea what's happening.
They're all here for me, man.
Oh. Here, I'll let them see your face while we listen to Mr. Matisyahu Pageau. Where were we? Back to Matisyahu. No, that's not where we were. Back to Matisyahu.
What happened is he became the key to another problem, which is the nations, the problems of the nations. So Jesus became the solution to the problems of the nations.
If that was the solution for the past 2,000 years, that's not the solution. For the past 2,000 years, this is what Christians have to be willing to do, which is repent of their history of being Christians. And I welcome you to do so.
And for us who are not Jewish, let's say, it doesn't matter if this key unlocks problems that are not ours. Okay, so there's a bunch of laws in the Bible that are only for Israelites, not for everyone else. So if we're not Jewish or if we're not Israelites, we don't need to worry about these riddles. They're not for us. It's not my problem what it means. Let's say I can find any law in the Bible. They're very obscure. You know, these laws are obscure, and they're, to us at least, they look random, they look weird because they're laws. But we don't need to care about those laws. See, that's the thing, because those laws weren't meant for the nations. They were meant for Israelites. So we just ignore those laws. Who cares what they mean? You know, it's fine. We did nothing wrong on our part as non-Israelites.
I agree with him 100%. Correct.
We did nothing wrong. These laws are not our problem. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. So eating kosher, for example, you know, Jews were given this law: eat kosher. Well, you can eat this, not that. Okay. Jesus said none of the laws are going to be lost. Not one iota.
Not going to be lost. Not one iota. Good. Okay. I was worried he was taking for parenthetical abomination of thus making all foods clean, which obviously Christians have had to rethink in the past 100 years or so that they've actually been reading their Bible.
Of the law will be abandoned. Okay, he was talking to them when he said that. That's the answer to that problem. The moment that Christ was rejected is the moment he became the key to other problems. Okay, ours, not theirs. So you don't want this solution? You don't want this key? Okay, sorry. I mean, you decide. I can't force you to use this key. So now this key becomes the key to other problems. Okay, so the problems of the nations. So we don't need to understand those laws. We don't.
Okay, he is understanding Jesus to not be the Messiah of Israel. And I would agree with him. I don't think there is any sense in which you could really call Jesus the Messiah of Israel. That just doesn't work, as Maimonides points out. I think that does not remove the possibility of what the Romans thought for evil, God used for good, in terms of Joseph and his brothers.
Okay. And some of the things that we do as Christians seems like paradox if you read the Bible. Oh, but only if you interpret it with forgetting what I just said here, is that those laws weren't meant for us. Well, it's not our problem. So you don't need to be kosher. You don't need to be circumcised. You know, all these things that Paul said, and some of it Peter too. We can do that. We can follow Paul. You see, it's a paradox. It's a big paradox, you know. It's not that easy to circumvent. It's not that easy. It's possible, I think. But for us, we can follow Paul. But can Jews follow Paul? You know, the Jews that received the law that said, you must eat kosher? And that also said, if anyone tells you not to eat kosher, reject them. No, the answer is no. Okay. No.
Thank you, Matthew. Matisyahu, my brother. Thank you.
Not a lot of people talk about this subject, but I will. Apparently, I have to. So, but they can follow Jesus, though. See, that's the thing. They can't follow Jesus because Jesus was the key to that puzzle. Okay, Paul came along.
Was Jesus was the key? How was he the key to that our puzzle? Let's go back to Jacob's greatest hits. My favorite painting of Jesus, because of the sign, but also because of the rest of it. I've actually I've been meaning to write an article for the Symbolic World on this painting. It's called Christ Crucified, It's from the 1500s, I believe, maybe 1600s. And the sign is just chef's kiss magnifico, because the Hebrew is just so comically wrong, and the absurdity of it. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, except the words Jesus of Nazareth can be read. Funnily enough, because of the rabbinic vocalizations, which didn't exist and would never be used on a sign anyway, even after they were created, until thousands of years after Jesus. But King of the Jews is written in pseudo Hebrew. That's just gibberish right there. Not actually legible. Yeah, sorry, Jesus, King of the Jews, doesn't work.
To help us use that key for our puzzles. When I say us, I mean the nations. And he did a good job too. Paul is very brilliant, but for him, it was probably a struggle. I don't know. I can't talk to him, unfortunately, but I mean, it was a struggle for him because he saw himself as Jewish. So all of a sudden, you got to abandon these laws. But it says clearly in the law that you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to abandon these laws.
But he did. That degenerate.
Did. So it was to me. I think it was a struggle for Peter. Peter receives the vision of the cloth that descends, and God says, "Eat from this food," and it's all kind of unkosher food in there. So it's pigs, eat the pig. It's like. But God, 2 seconds ago, you just told me never to eat pig. And you said anyone who contradicts this is, you got to reject. But now you're telling me eat the pig. How's that possible? And the answer is what I said. The answer is now, as the moment Jesus was rejected, is the moment it became for non-Jews.
See, he misunderstands this. Pretty much everybody agrees that the interpretation of Peter's dream by Peter was that he may now eat with Cornelius, or whatever the name of the guy was. Not that he may eat unkosher, but that it was a time for the Jews and the Gentiles to reside together. Which, technically I'm not supposed to be alone with a Gentile because he might kill me or rape me or do something horrible to me. But he hasn't done anything like that yet. Thank God.
There's still time.
And these contradictions are contradictions. They're only contradictions if you ignore what I just said. So part of what I'm trying to do is to see Jesus as the key to the original lock, which is the Bible, all of it, all the laws. So Paul was so conflicted with this idea that he had to abandon his identity he's a Benjaminite. That's why it happened to him too, because Benjamin is a special tribe, It was such a conflict for him that he basically went blind and crazy, a little bit, because, he went blind. What he saw was so high. It was higher than what he could handle. So he saw a light so bright that he fell off his horse. So that's usually not a good thing. If you fall off your horse like that blinded, it doesn't mean you understood something. It means you didn't. It means you saw something too big for you and you fell. It's a falling story. He fell. Okay? But it's seen positively for us because we are benefit from his fall. You see, these are big. I'm talking about big.
I agree with him. Paul's fall may have been to the benefit of other people, but fall it was nevertheless.
Big riddles here. Okay, I think I have to do it. But so Paul, it was such an intense paradox for him that he basically saw himself as a clown. Like, I'm a fool. I'm a fool for Christ. If I praise myself, it'll be because of my sin. He says things like that. Though a clown is someone who, or a jester is someone who is not trying to make laws fit with facts. Okay, if you want the definition of a clown is someone who accepts the idea that things don't fit, and he makes that into a positive narrative. Okay, because a clown, like a clown with his big shoes, why are you wearing big shoes? They're too big for you. Yeah, that's the whole point of a clown. It's He saw something that was too big for something too small, or it could be the other way around. It doesn't matter. But then instead of
I agree. Paul was a clown. I might start using that.
being negatively stressed about it, he saw it as a positive thing. Okay? He solved the riddle as a clown, and he says so himself. So it's not me insulting him. And this is
I'm insulting him. I don't think he saw himself as a clown. I think you can read his pride. I have never, ever, ever read somebody write so emphatically, "I am not a liar," over and over again. I don't know how many times he does it. I don't know why, but I read the letters of Paul, and he says, "I am not lying," and all I can think is, you do protest too much. And then all of the ways, his condescension to Moses, his stupid mistake in Galatians 3, I believe it is. And frankly, when you come down to it, there's neither Jew nor Greek, free nor bond, man nor woman in Christ Jesus. I honestly do believe that there is a reason why what is a woman is such a important issue right now as we, I believe, approach a time of revelation of God where people will see Christianity is false. Because in that one sentence that clearly you can see, if you believe that there is neither Jew nor Greek in Christ Jesus, in the same way that you believe there is neither woman nor man in Christ Jesus, you will end up with the result that you deserve. And I think that's why we've ended up where we are, right? Because of that interpretation, of that understanding. I have been immensely clear, most recently in that particularly controversial part of Tanya that I went through. There is a qualitative difference between male and female, Jew, Gentile, bond, free. Does that mean we are not equal before God? Yes and no. We are equal before God because all that is finite is equal before God. We are not equal before God because God created us distinctly, and He, being the infinite judge, the infinite everything, distinguishes clearly. And if you are not willing to accept, which obviously the Gentiles 2,000 years ago were not willing to accept, the Gentiles 1,000 years ago were not willing to accept. And until about 50 years ago, when the Noahide movement suddenly rekindled, people were not willing to accept, is Atem tihu li mamlechet kohanim, you shall be for me a nation of priests, beni bechori Israel, my firstborn son is Israel. There is a priesthood of Israel which is distinct from the laity, which is the other nations. And if you reject Judaism and you reject that, that's up to you. But as our good friend Jordan Peterson likes to point out, hierarchy is older than trees.
This is part of the symbolism of Benjamin. By the way, I mean, this is important stuff here. I don't know why nobody's talking about these things, but Benjamin receives one name from his mother.
Let's see what. The solution is to be in union with the Vicar of Christ, the one true Holy Roman Catholic Church. Sounds suspiciously dispensationalist. No, it's very different from dispensationalist. Andrew is sus, not gonna lie, he is. Slanderer. I don't wear big shoes. Who's a fake? Yeah, you're a bad clown. Sorry, Elijah. Transgenderism is downstream from Paul of Tarsus. Come on, man. Why did it take 2,000 years? This is goofy. It took 2,000 years because it was it took that long for Christians to reach that level of absurdity. Paul obviously talking about being equal before God, right? And if you understand that in that one sentence, you should understand that regarding Israel. So the caste system is cool then. Judaism has a caste system. Yes, I am perfectly cool with a caste system as defined by a God. I think postmodernism is God's judgment on Christianity. I would agree. Are we not all holy? Famous last words of Korach. Thank you, Emily. I thought you were disagreeing with me about the caste system. Okay. Back to our good friend Mathieu.
Mother and one name from his father. So he's got two identities. So his mother calls him Ben Oni, which is like son of my pain. She has when she has him, she dies. So it's a big deal.
His Hebrew is actually pretty good. Ben Oni, he's correct.
So it's like almost a curse that she's giving her son. You're a son of pain and suffering. And then his father says, "No, I'm going to call you Ben Jemin, which means son of my right hand."
Maybe his Hebrew is not so good. It's Ben Yamin. Although I hope he's not one of those people who actually believes there's a J in Hebrew, because there are such people.
It's the Jimmel, man.
Yeah, the Jimmel. The Jimmel that all the Jods become.
So Benjamin has two names, two conflicting names, two opposite names. Okay, so this is part of the nature of Benjamin. This is why Paul is a Benjaminite.
Well, I guess he was trying to make sense with the rest of. I will forgive him for saying Benjamin instead of Ben Yamin.
I mean, God chooses people who fit the bill. When he has certain missions to do. And this is Paul. He was an enemy of Christ at first. So this is Ben Oni, son of my pain for us. And then he flipped. He fell off the horse. This is a story of a fall. It's like Aid from the tree.
That's a weird way of putting it. I don't understand the pattern he thinks he's explicating, but okay.
Not do good and bad. That's
what he seems to not understand adequately is Benjamin was one of the Josephite tribes, and there's the whole story of Joseph. So that's where I would take it if I were him. But yeah.
That's what it means. He ate something he saw something too big for him to handle as he was at that time, and made him fall and become blind. So that's
yep. If I were naming Father Stephen's book, Blind Baal of Tarsus, but I would call him the blind apostle to the nations, and I would say in the kingdom of the blind, the one who sees dimly is king. Well, there you go. The dim bulb that was Paul of Tarsus.
His second name. He received the second name, son of my right hand. So it's like he has two conflicting identities. And how does he deal with it? Well, we know from his letters. He calls himself a fool. A fool is someone who contradicts himself and sees it as good. It's good because he understood a deep mystery. We don't necessarily need to understand what he understood. At this point, anyway, our whole history is based on Paul. Paul wrote almost more stuff in the New Testament than anyone else. So we can't.
What almost? He did. And the Gospels were written in accordance to Paul, and the other letters were probably forgeries written in service to Paul. Yeah, Pauline Christianity is what has led Christianity, which is why Christians need to seriously repent and turn back to Israel.
Ignore him, and we shouldn't ignore him. We don't need to ignore him. So
I think you're perfectly fine ignoring him. He brought you this far. Go the rest of the way.
now the question is, how can Jews be Christian? See, that's another issue because they did receive those laws. So do they all become fools like Paul? I don't think so.
Yep. Any Jew who becomes a Christian is a fool. I agree.
Maybe that Paul had a specific role to play. Clearly he did. He became the apostle of the nations. So he tailored his vision, to the nations. So it's a big problem. We're faced with a big problem. Not we. See, that's the thing. This is what happened to me at one point. I asked myself about Jews, why aren't they Christian? That's what question I asked myself a long time ago. And unfortunately for me, I'm meticulous, I don't accept answers that cover something just to cover it, I get neither real answer. So I learned Hebrew, did all these things, learned all these things. I'm still learning, I decided to talk to Jews at one point, what do they have to say about it? I discovered a lot of things about a problem. Some of them are dealing with this problem in slow motion. So that's what I'm doing. I think what I'm doing is a benefit to Christians for the reason I said before, because we need to see the riddle before it's presented to us in a adversarial manner. So that's the reason I don't talk about Christianity. It's not out of disrespect. It's the opposite. So if I ever find a way to explain the law clearly, I'm doing it solely. It's not all in one shot. Then I'll use the key to unlock it. I'm confident that the key unlocks it. I already know the key unlocks it. That doesn't mean I can explain it. But sometimes you can understand something for yourself. That doesn't mean you can explain it to everyone else. That's obvious. I mean, in any other domain, we understand this. In any other field of study, we understand this. If you study like I did in mathematics, I can understand something, but I'm not going to be able to explain it to someone who has.
Thank you. And may Richard Feynman's stupidity be put to rest. The idea that you have to be able to explain something in order to truly understand it is a complete mistake. I know people who can explain things simply, and frankly, Feynman, I believe, said it to a college sophomore, whereas most people think will think a child. And sorry, like some people just don't have the capacity. He meant a college sophomore, right? And there are people who can explain things in ways that a college sophomore can understand it, who actually don't even understand it that well themselves, but they're just parroting words that they have heard and are good at conveying, which is the funny part.
Hasn't studied mathematics. How am I going to do that? I could pretend I could do the thing. I can go through the motion of explaining it to someone who's never had any experience in higher mathematics. I know already he's not going to understand. It's useless. So it's an insult, actually, to do that to the person. It's an insult to the person hearing it. It's like, why am I talking to you about something you never studied before? Insulting. Okay. So you don't do that. So what do? Instead, you try to explain it gradually and slowly, and until you're able to explain it to anyone who wants to hear it. And then once you've done that, you hope they read what you wrote or whatever. They looked at the lessons that you presented to explain these things. And then after that, you give the solution. There you go. So to give the solution to a question that we don't know what it is dumb for me. But it's not the problem of all Christians. I don't expect every Christian to be like me. I hope not. Actually, don't follow me. It's just I put myself in this situation a long time ago, and now I can't get out.
Okay, so he does think of himself as a Christian.
For a bit. I'm stuck. Okay.
What's so funny?
I don't know.
It's okay. I mean, I'm not.
Like,
He's a Protestant.
I put myself in this situation and I can't get out.
He's a Protestant. Yes, he is. And you can refer to my series, Why is Protestant Theology So Bad? to see why his theology is so bad.
I think it's bad if you treat it as like a systematic, oh, I'm going to follow him. But he says, don't follow me, you know?
But it's bad for him. It's bad for him. If you are constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, if you are trying to always go back to the very beginning, as opposed to even, okay, if you really need to check the work of other people, okay, check, right? But that's not what he's doing. He's trying to innovate without actually relying on all of the work that everybody has done for thousands of years. Like, and that's just silly. Like, okay, I there are things that I know, right? But I know things that Rabbi Breitowitz, for example, knows a lot better than me. Like, I'm not going to reinterpret the Talmud. I may even ask him questions, right? But like, I know that he's done the work, and I like to do it this way. Remarkably Protestant in the worst way of being Protestant. Like my series, I have 3, maybe 4 videos. Why is Protestant theology so bad? But yeah.
Suffering, or that much I'm suffering sometimes, but
And
I don't think anyone should follow me.
Trey is inviting everyone to my apartment, apparently, tomorrow. Not, well, day after tomorrow. Now I have to RSVP for the fact that I am coming to my own apartment tomorrow.
Did he send it to the previous SJ members? Can you see it?
I have no clue. Oh, yeah, the Chino. I don't think you can go and like
See who is sent to.
and invite somebody else's estuary members.
No, just the LA estuary. You know what I mean?
What LA estuary?
Yeah, like the
Oh,
previous
you
LA
mean the
estuary.
email?
Yeah, the LA
I don't know who he sent it to. Attend. I am going to be coming to my own apartment tomorrow. Okay. I hope he did not. Well, I guess it's not a huge thing if he actually put my address on. I don't see my address. Do you see my address?
Yes.
Okay. The man is an idiot. Will you please tell him to like at least take my name off of this? Where were we? It would have been mean to make the kid go his whole life with the first name Ben-Oni. There are some names in the Bible you have to worry. In Yemenite, there's a J. Yeah, the Jimmel. Yes, it wasn't his fault. The guy who goes. The other letters were written by Constantine at Nicaea, I believe. Polyfills are cool. So I'm late to the stream, and I'm catching up at efficiency speed. Saw 1 Corinthians 9:9, did quick and dirty patristic commentary research. Apologies that is not timely for the stream. Matisyahu is the Jew. Yochanan is the Greek in the Pageau. Funny. Why does Paul mention this when he could have used the example of the priests? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why Paul uses that. Yes, Andrew is trying to seduce my dog away from me.
Trying to.
Apparently succeeding.
Oh,
Yeah.
Me too.
You should at least give her a cookie and fill up her bowl.
Okay.
And she has water, right?
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yep.
Okay. He at least interpreted what St. Paul wrote as not saying God did not. Where were we? The reason is that he wanted to prove his case beyond any shadow of doubt. If God cares about oxen, how much more will he care about the labor of teachers? Good excuse, I guess, kind of. But he seems quite clearly to be dismissing the idea that God cares about oxen. He at least interpreted what St. Paul wrote as not saying God did not care for the oxen, but rather that he cares for the oxen, but even more so the teachers. You really think you're worthy to ask Rabbi Breitowitz a question? I am not only worthy, I have asked Rabbi Breitowitz many, many questions over the years. I prefer doxa over doxing. Okay, where were we?
It's too late, Jacob.
What's to it?
All your pets have belonged to me.
You're allergic. You are not going to be able to breathe for the next 2 days if you continue this.
It'll be fine.
If he dies of an allergic reaction, it is not my problem. He's standing there scratching my cat. Look at him. He's scratching the cat. Do you see this? Yeah, Andrew also getting people sick. Andrew is a horrible person.
Yeah. It's worth it for the cat, though, you know? Like.
If you say so. Okay, we are back to our good friend Matisyahu.
Into the pit. But I'm not trying to be a leader or anything like that. I'm doing something very specific. But now I'm explaining what it is so people know. I'm trying to find the lock. This lock, by the way, is the Grail. Hey, this is the.
Isn't it Jonathan Pageau? So it's not Yohanan Pageau, it's Jonathan Pageau. Yohanan is a different name from Jonathan.
Grail. It's the question. The original question that kills Jesus. And the blood flowed into that question. But what we want now is not for that question to kill Jesus again. You know, why do that? Because, well, when I say kill Jesus in this context, I mean attack Christianity. So it already happened once in the past that Jesus was attacked, the Messiah was attacked by these questions. There's no reason to do that again. It's not, I mean, we kind of lost.
Except he's not the Messiah.
The Grail at one point, but we don't need to use that occasion to attack Christianity against. A lot of people are doing it. I'm not want to add myself to everyone who's attacking Christianity right now, which is like everyone, you know. So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I hope it makes sense what I'm saying. It doesn't sound completely insane. It's not. So I'm gonna keep working what I'm working. There's things that I have to explain. So now I'm trying to explain the Grail, which is sleep, which is rest, renewal. The stone that was rejected by the builders, the stone that Moses hit with his staff. You know, God says, ask the stone for water. Moses is impatient. He hits the stone with his staff, and he still gets water, you know. But it's not in a good way. And because of his refuse to go into the promised land. So you got to be careful with that stuff, you know. You don't hit the stone with that gives, that renews you. You don't hit it. Especially when God says what to do, which is ask the stone for water. If you don't need water, you don't have to ask the stone for water. If you do, you ask, but you don't hit it. So this is what happened to Jesus, you know. He was hit with the staff of Moses, and he still renewed, still did the job that the stone does, but not in a good way, in a negative way. It's the same thing with Cain and Abel. You know, Abel was supposed to renew things for Cain, but Cain decided instead to hit him with his lance, you know, his weapon, and he bled out, and his blood renewed the land still. But see, that's the thing. It happens still. Jesus still renewed, but in a negative way that leads to some tribulations.
Yeah, that's not a. I don't like the idea that the blood of Abel, like fertilized the ground. I think actually the opposite happened.
And some exile for the people who did hit him. So I hope that explains why I don't talk about Christianity. It's a respect, it's out of respect because I already know the key is the key. I already know. I don't need to prove. We do need to prove that this is the key to the lock, but without the lock, you can't do that. So what happens when you don't have the original lock is.
But we do have the original lock, my dear friend. We do.
It sometimes becomes superficial, because it's like, yeah, Jesus has answered everything. Oh, let's read the story in the Old Testament, and then it's like, let's say read the story of Samson. Okay, well, this is just a prototype of Christ, or I don't remember the word that's used. Usually, it's not prototype; it's something else. Do you know the word? People use to say that it's something that happened before Christ, but it was like I don't know the word. Can you help me?
I'm blanking on it too. Are you thinking like type in like typology?
Typology, it's pre-type or something like that. I don't sometimes.
Prototype, maybe he means.
This is not so great, but it's
Word.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes it's too superficial. You can't always just do that. It's not false though. But,
yeah, it is. It is false.
Oh, this is the type of Christ. So, Samson is the type of Christ. Okay, please explain to me. Okay, because he died, or because I agree that it is. That's what I'm saying. I'm not attacking. See, now I'm talking about Christianity. It already sounds like I'm attacking it. I'm not. But the answer is a lot deeper than people think. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Christ is the key to all the problems in the Bible, all the laws, into everything. But it's the answer is a lot more powerful and deeper than people think when they explain certain things.
I'm sorry, but you have one key and you're insisting it opens all the doors. And for 2,000 years, there's been one door it very clearly has not opened.
A little bit superficially. So the reason I don't speak about it.
And when you have the lock and you see that the key doesn't fit, you have to realize it's not the key.
Is because, like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm attacking Christianity, because that's not what I'm doing, and I'm not even attacking Christians, because, like I said, a lot of the riddle, the original riddle, okay, it's not our problem, because we're not Jewish. We don't need to know these things. We don't need to make sense.
No, but Israel is the light unto the Gentiles. That if you are looking for the God of Israel, if you're looking for the Messiah of the world, you have to look towards Israel, because it is the God of Israel and it is the Messiah of Israel. And there's no two ways about it.
What about like Cyrus?
What about Cyrus?
Like, I don't know. He's like the Messiah.
Yeah, he was the Messiah of God, but he was the Messiah of God because he enabled the Jews to go back and rebuild an inferior temple, but a temple. And yeah, look, it's been clear since the beginning of history. He who blesses the offspring of Abraham will be blessed, and he who curses it will be cursed. And in the entirety of human history, this has over and over played itself out. And if you can stand in the year 2024 after Jesus and not recognize, like, you're just making a mistake, I don't know what to say to you. I really don't. Like, it's right there. It's all through human history. It's right there. When you recognize, when you bring your offerings to the temple of the Jews and you give it to the priest who is Israel, that is what blesses you. And when you turn your back, when you become Rome, when you destroy the temple of the Jews, when you turn your back on the priesthood, which is Israel, you get what you get. And if it had been Jews who were actually, like so many people think, like the anti-Semites weirdly imagine that, like, Jews have been able to take here. Let's do Mark Twain concerning the Jews. Concerning the Jews is a 1899 short essay by Mark Twain. Twain had lived in Austria during 1896 and opined that the Habsburg Empire used Jews as scapegoats to maintain unity in their immensely diverse empire, which he's probably right about. Okay. Contents. Okay, the essay also account of the Jewish people with regard to their survival. I won't read this is the short version. The long version is worth reading, but he has made a marvelous fight in this world in all the ages, has done it with his hands tied behind him. He could be vain of himself and be excused for it. The Egyptian, the Babylonian, and the Persian rose, filled the planet with sound and splendor, then faded to dream stuff and passed away. The Greek and the Roman followed and made a vast noise, and they are gone. Other peoples have sprung up and held their torch high for a time, but it burnt out, and they sit in twilight now, or have vanished. The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was, exhibiting no decadence, no infirmities of age, no weakening of his parts, no slowing of his energies, no dulling of his alert and aggressive mind. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? This was hundreds of years ago. What can I tell you? What can I tell you? It is what it is. Let's see. Where were we? Shadow was scratching where Andrew scratched her. Maybe the allergy is mutual. Poor Shadow. Yes. You are torturing my poor cat. How dare you? I see that too. Shadow had an allergic reaction to it. There you go. Emily says foreshadowing. I don't know if she means that by about Matthew or about you. Prefiguring, let him cook a G's. Yeah, and now his nose has started running. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, it was worth it. It was worth it. It was worth it.
You're probably going to have to take a shower before you go to bed.
It wasn't worth it in that I enjoyed petting Shadow. It was worth it in that she got allergies too.
Okay, I see. Okay, back to Matisyahu Pageau.
So the laws, because they're not for us. So a lot of it we don't need to. But I think we're reaching a point in history now where we are going to have to answer these questions. So like I said, before that happens, I'm trying to show like a dream, a dream that's a premonition, a dream the dream is showing you the problem before it happens, so you know what to do when it happens, like Joseph. So that's what I'm doing. I hope that makes sense. Everything I just said probably sounds crazy, but
no, it makes a lot of sense.
It does. Okay,
yeah.
Make me feel better. Okay, because there's lots of things I don't talk about, because I know it's not gonna be helpful. You don't talk about things that aren't helpful. I think this now I have to talk about this stuff. So I am. But if you say it makes sense. I'm glad.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's quite beautiful, actually.
Okay, thank you. So that was the answer to that. I hope I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I go too fast, I go too slow, whatever I'm looking for, I know already. That's the thing, because there's different levels of understanding. You can have a glimpse of things. That doesn't mean you can explain it. Like I said before, I had a long time ago, I had some insights when I was 20. I had mega insights about, let's say, like a vision. I don't like that word, but that's what it was basically. It took me 20 years to understand some of it. Most of it took me this long. So I could have just back then gone crazy, start talking about my vision, like a lot of people do, by the way. And then it's just confusion and craziness, But that doesn't mean that the person who got the vision doesn't get it. He probably does. But when he tries to express it, because sometimes it's not time yet to talk about certain things. It's not time. Just like, why didn't Christ appear right after the fall? That would have solved a lot of problems, right? I mean, there's the fall. Why didn't God just send Jesus right away? Oh, problem solved. You see, because these things happen in their time, because the problem of the fall had to express itself fully before the solution to it made any sense. And in the Bible, in Genesis, the culmination of this problem is actually the fallen angels, the giants, the Nephilim. That's like the culmination of the problem of the fall. At the end there, it's like these guys, these giants, which are unions of angels and humans, hybrids, they created all kinds of problems in the world. And these problems had to be solved, and they were solved by Jesus, okay? Later, when it was time, not before. So that's the thing. I'm doing something like that, You don't say things before it's time. It's just common sense, really, I'm not that weird. I think I'm doing normal things. I think other people are not doing the right thing, actually, Sometimes some people who occultists are.
Matthew, if you ever see this,
He's the only one out there. Look at him. Look what's behind him. He's in a yurt.
Matthew, accept that you are not normal. You are weird, and you are not doing normal things. Accept that. Be at one with it, my friend. I say this out of love. Be at one with your strangeness.
How much weirder does he have to get for him to accept it? Like, does he live as a monk? Like, what's weirder than what he's doing right now?
I have zero idea. But now, because you scratched my poor cat, she's hiding from me.
No, she just
Are an example of that.
and she knows.
Talk about things that they know when it's not time. Why? I don't. Because they, whatever reason, it doesn't matter what the reason is. Really, I shouldn't even need to think about that. But some occultists have more knowledge than some Christians. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's better. It's like buying something on credit. You borrow money. I borrow money to buy this big mansion. Let's say, okay, the $1 million mansion. I borrow all the money and I buy this $1 million mansion. Am I better than the guy who owns a little house there? $100,000 house, in a rural area. Am I better than him because I have a gigantic mansion? No, because I borrowed for it. It's worthless. It's worse than nothing. It'd be better if you had nothing than this house that you borrowed with millions of dollars. It's not really yours. So occultism is like that. It's like you have a power that is not yours.
Depends how much equity you have. Are you underwater on your loan or not?
That was lent to you by an entity that you don't really know. This is what happens when you borrow money too. This money or this power is being able.
Depends who you borrowed from. Did you borrow from Moses or did you borrow from Baal?
To be used by you, but you don't know all the implications because, like I said in our previous discussion, the one who lent you the money owns your soul right now. He owns your identity, your soul. So you might think you're using this power that looks like it's more. The guy who bought owns more than me that borrowed all this money to buy the mansion. So this is how you understand some of the occultism. The occultism is like the guy who borrowed $10 million and bought a mansion. And it looks like he sometimes has more than the other one, but he has much, much less. In fact, he has millions of dollars of debt, which is worse than.
If he's underwater and he went to the wrong bank, yeah, definitely.
No, it's worse than having nothing, actually. A beggar is better than this guy, So it's just an example of things happen in their time, Maybe the guy can get the mansion, but in its time. He's trying to get it before it's time. He has to borrow money from an unknown entity that might be adversarial to him. And the moment there's a problem, he gets crushed by this entity, this lender of power, this lender. So I think that's an important lesson to learn here. So everything in its time. God is someone who works slowly, All the Bible is about that. Really, it's kind of annoying, actually. When you read the Bible, it's mostly about, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. It's not time yet. You want to do something? God's like, no, not now, later. Tower of Babel is an example of that, Trying to build this empire. It's not time yet. That's why it's wrong. It's not wrong to build the tower. It's wrong because it's not time yet. So it gets swept away. And then all of Abraham's life is about that. God promises something. And it's like, am I going to get what you promised? No, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. And eventually God, he makes him fall asleep to reveal this. And it's like, yeah, you're going to get it, but 400 years from now. That's a crushing blow, to your plans. I told you this, I promised you this, but it's going to be in 400 years. And even then, lots of struggle in between. So, no, God functions like that. We just have to accept it. That's my way of thinking now, So I hope this helps some people somewhere, someone somewhere to understand something more. So,
I'm sure it will.
okay, so yeah, thanks for letting me
Okay.
explain myself on this.
No, thank you for
Because you asked me about Mary in what our previous talk, and I said I wasn't going to talk, and I felt like maybe it sounds like I'm something, because then I say I don't want to talk about Mary, but then I talk about things that sound like Judaism, and it is. So it's like, are you a Jew? Are you? Is that what you are? No, it's not. It's not. So I think I had to explain myself. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's very profound, actually. So
Thanks.
I really appreciate you wanting to talk more about that.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be more, when it's time for me. I'm going to talk about these questions. I'm sure they'll annoy some people, but that's everything anyone does always annoys people. So there's not
Yes.
much you can do about that. So I'm just going to do what I think I have to do. Maybe in a couple of years, it'll be a little more obvious what I'm trying to do. But for now, I'm doing this book. So Book About Dreams. That's what I'm doing. So
Okay,
hopefully by the end of the winter, I should have that finished then. I hope.
very cool. Is there anything else you want to mention?
No, I think I'm done now for
Okay.
a while, probably.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it was great talking to you again, Matthew.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, thank you.
He's done. And this Dan Sherwin guy got a, I will leave him a like. Tammy Peterson even commented, "Who is this Dan Sherwin, and why does he have fewer
Did you have any questions for me before?
people than I do?" I mean, he had Tammy Peterson on. He had Jonathan Pageau on. He had PVK on. He has fewer subscribers than I do. Dude, you might want to do something about that. I have no idea why you have fewer subscribers than I do.
He doesn't feel like promoting himself.
Apparently, Sherwin is a best-selling author of 4 books and an award-winning journalist. Uncreated Light and Dark, a novel. Live to the Point of Tears. Talks, articles.
Yo, that'd be cool.
You should have me on. Okay, let's see what people have said. If people want to join, there's way too many people watching the stream. Why are so many people watching the stream? I am going to go to sleep, but you guys can stay up and talk to Andrew. If anybody wants to join, where were we? Cook. If you have to say, I think I'm doing normal things. No, he's a desert father. He's not weird. Everyone else is weird. A forest father. He said that he couldn't be a monk because of all the homosexuality among the monks.
Yeah,
I'm not joking. Well, yeah, I mean, he's literally a heartbeat away from eating locusts and wild honey. He talked about credit earlier in the section around Jacob and Tamar. Yeah. My favorite expression about living on credit is big hat, no cattle. He talks water, threads, dreams, illusions, make work, female illusion, stumbling stones, bunch of credit. Could you get me water, my dear friend?
Sure.
Thank you. You want to come here or not? Come here. Kitty cat. Sandy, go to bed. You can ask them later. This is my Andrew Ward.
What's poppin'?
Good night, Sandy.
Yes, connections.
He must have connections.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
what can you do? What can you do?
there are many things you could do.
Yeah.
She's falling asleep. You see that?
Yeah.
Rockabye baby off the tree.
She's really sleepy today.
I saw that picture you took.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, cats sleep during the day a
Mhm.
lot. And I'm wondering if maybe she didn't sleep as much while I was away.
She was scared of me.
I would be. You're kind of tall.
I'm a dangerous person.
Dangerous person. Dangerous person indeed. Yeah.
Did you see what Rabbi Shulman said about the Ephraim guy?
I did not, but apparently, what's his name has made me a co-host of his event.
Mhm.
I don't know how that works.
It means you can change this stuff.
I can change the stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, let me see about changing the stuff. Why doesn't it let me change the stuff? Manage?
That's the attendees.
Yeah. Does it let me edit organizer tools? Edit events. Edit events. Why is it not letting me edit events? Edit event. Edit this and all following events. Description. What? Uh, 2 hours featured photo. Speaker topic location on the line.
Super random question.
Super random answer.
So I was reading that like as a Driven Leaf book.
Yeah, it was so.
You know,
I was not a fan.
honestly, I think it's decently slow because it's trying very hard to like connect disparate stories and also like make a believable world, right?
If you say so.
Yeah, but one of the plot points is like, you know, boy goes to like collect a bird's nest and drives away the bird, falls off the ladder and dies, right? And it's not just that like, you know, he dies, that whatever what do you call him? Ben Ayusha? Or
Alicia Ben Abuha.
Abuha. Okay, yeah. Like, renounces his faith. It's that there's a bunch of ex post facto, whatever, philosophizing for how this could have happened by everyone else around him, you know?
I mean, it's one short story in the Talmud.
Yeah, but like, I was wondering, how do you. So, what is the explanation that's not. Doesn't seem biased? You know what I mean? Like, how do you
The
explain-
explanation is Ein Beyadenu. We have no capacity. The injustice, like the book of Job.
No,
Yeah, the book of Job is the book of Job. And yeah, like, okay, so now I have to tell the story from the Talmud. So in the Talmud, there's a question: how did Acher, which literally means the other, which is how Elisha ben Abuha is referred to in
Really?
most of the Talmud? Yes, he's referred to usually as Acher, as the other. How he ended up leaving the Torah life. And symbolism guy is kind of incoherent. Color me surprised. Elijah, stop being so cynical. What were we saying? We were talking about Elisha ben Abuha. That there are two mitzvot in the Torah which say that you will have long life as a reward for those two commandments. One, the first commandment is respecting thy mother and thy father, and the other commandment is referred to as shiluach haken, which actually at the Shalom Zachor for Yosef's baby boy, he discussed that mitzvah. So a Shalom Zachor is the first Sabbath of a baby boy, because between being born and being circumcised, there's always a Sabbath. And Shalom Zachor is a tradition of having a sort of celebration on that Sabbath. And Yosef posted on my Discord the speech that he gave at his son's new baby boy's Shalom Zachor. And yes, his son does look like Winston Churchill, because as Emma pointed out, all babies look like Winston Churchill. The mitzvah is, if you are going to take the chicks or the eggs from a nest, you must first
drive the mother bird away.
Correct. You cannot take both. And there's a similar mitzvah, actually. You are not allowed to kill a cow and her calf on the same day. So the story goes that Acher, his father told him to perform. He saw a father telling a young man who was below the age of sin to go and do this mitzvah, to take the eggs and drive away the mother. And the child goes to do this, and in respect of his father, and he breaks his neck and dies as he's doing this. And so Acher says, look at this, right? These are the two mitzvot. He was doing both of them at once, and he died young. So how he could not explain it, and apparently that's supposed to be the thing. And that, yes, this book, as a driven leaf, is a dramatization of the life of Acher. And I never finished this book because it's just too boring.
Yeah, it's a bit slow.
How far did you get? Was that your bookmark? Oh, you read the entire thing?
This is your bookmark.
It is?
I think so.
I'm
That's
pretty
the one
sure I
found,
got
isn't it?
further than that. This is only at page 87. No, I'm pretty sure I got past the kids of Rabbi Meir dying. Yeah, that story is actually the most poignant one.
No shot.
What do you mean no
No
shot?
shot. It's the death of the of Rabbi Akiva.
Oh, I haven't gotten there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah. I mean, if yeah. Where were we? Bill Cynic. I understand God had the Jews make sacrifice on behalf of the nations and Gentiles. Correct. But could Gentiles bring sacrifices to be offered at the temple? Yes, they could. Or could only Jews bring temple sacrifices? Nope. Gentiles could bring sacrifices.
So, like, follow-up question.
Mm.
How do you resolve the, like, whole we don't know with, like, the positive statements of, like, this will bring you long life and...
You answer it with the psalm, L'hagid baboker chastecha ve'emunatcha ba'leilot. To proclaim in the morning your loving kindness and
your righteousness at night.
your faithfulness at night. Ve'emunatcha ba'leilot. Because when it is light and you can see, you see God's kindness. And when it is dark, you must have faith. And that is the darkness through which we walk, because no man can see God's face and live. And the whole story with Moses seeing the back of God's head, meaning that only in retrospect, once the Messiah comes, will we be able to clearly see. Got it? Also, we as Jews believe in transmigration of souls, so that helps. Okay, I'm thinking 10 more minutes and then I'm going to sleep. Unless Father Stephen decides to jump on, which he might just do that.
Another question.
What's your other question?
So, like, there's also the story of that one rabbi who, like, he's holding the Torah scroll and he's burning to death, and, like, he says he sees the letters floating free in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing there's...
Shadow, stay away from him.
she loves me. She loves me. What can I say? I'm guessing there's subtext there. Or, yeah, something. Like, what does that mean? Is it... I mean, I'm guessing the... All right, go for it. Talk.
Okay, you are talking... let me answer. What's his name? I did. Okay. So you are asking about the story of the 10 martyrs.
Mm.
I do not know the story of the 10 martyrs. Nearly. Really, Don? Really? You could have said Bill and Ted. You could have said any number of other things. And you chose Harold and Maude. You don't know who that is, do you?
Not a clue.
Good. I just hope your parents don't know who that is. Don, shame on you. Shame on you. Okay. What were we answering? We were answering about the 10 martyrs. And I, because it's not in my liturgy, don't know the story of the 10 martyrs nearly as well as Chazi does, because he says every year when the 10 martyrs are recited in his liturgy on Yom Kippur, he starts crying. I hate to think how much drugs he takes before Yom Kippur starts. But, yeah, I am not very familiar with all the story. I mean, I've read through the 10 Martyrs a couple of times. I mean, we could go to Wikipedia and ask about the 10 Martyrs. Would you like to ask Wikipedia about the 10 Martyrs?
Get the advice of Rabbi P.
10 Martyrs. Share this tab. Show this tab. The 10 Martyrs were 10 rabbis living during the era of the Mishnah who were martyred by the Roman Empire in the period after the destruction of the Second Temple. Their story is detailed in Midrash Ele Ezkara. Although not killed at the same time, since 2 of the rabbis listed lived well before the other 8, a dramatic poem known as Ele Ezkara, that translates to, I will bring to mind these things, kitty, tells their story as if they were killed together. This poem is recited in the Eastern Ashkenazic rite in Musaf on Yom Kippur, and at other times in the various Western Ashkenazic rites, not in the Sephardic rites, which is why I don't know it that well. A different poem about the 10 martyrs is recited on Tisha B'Av. I don't know that poem either. In the poem, the Roman Emperor Hadrian decides to martyr 10 rabbis as punishment for the 10 brothers listed in the Torah who sold their brother Joseph to ancient Egypt. He justifies this by saying that the penalty for this was death. Though the crime took place almost 2,000 years earlier, and Jewish law does not allow for the descendants of sinners to be punished, the Roman commander goes ahead with the executions because he says, there are none like you 10 who are capable of rectifying this crime. This poem lists the first 2 to be executed, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that's the grandson of Gamliel the First,
Yep.
and Rabbi Ishmael ben Elisha HaKohen Gadol. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was beheaded, and while Rabbi Ishmael grieved, weeping over his severed head, the Roman ruler's daughter coveted Rabbi Ishmael for his physical beauty. When she was told that he would have to be executed as well, she asked that the skin of his head be flayed while he was alive, so she could stuff the skin and look at his face. When the servants began to strip away the skin on the forehead, where the phylactery is placed, Ishmael cried aloud and died. Next to die was Rabbi Akiva, whose skin was raked with iron combs. Despite the pain consuming him, he was able to proclaim God's providence in the world by reciting the Shema, drawing out the final Chad, 1. The next sage martyred was Rabbi Hanina ben Teradion, who was wrapped in a Torah scroll and burned alive. Wet sponges of wool were placed on his chest to ensure that he would not die quickly. When he was being burnt, he told his students that he could see the letters of the sacred Torah flying up to heaven. In the poem, the remaining martyrs listed are Chutzpit, the interpreter, Elazar ben Shamua, Hanina ben Hakinai. Hakinai or Hakinai? Let's see. Where's the Hebrew of his name? Hanina ben Hakinai. Yeah. Yeshevav, the scribe, Rabbi Judah ben Dama, and Rabbi Judah ben Baba. Historical evaluation. Popular imagination seized upon this episode in Jewish history and embellished it with various stories relating the virtues of the martyrs and the fortitude shown by them during their execution. These less legends became in the Gaonic period, that is the period between the writing of the Babylonian Talmud and the first of the Rishonim was Rabbeinu Alphas around the year 900 something. The Midrash Asara Harugei Malchut, or Midrash El Ezkara. The deaths are described therein as being gruesome, contrary to the accounts given in the Talmud, Midrash Rabbah, and Midrash El Ezkara, which clearly state that there were intervals between the executions of the 10 teachers. The poem El Ezkara describes their martyrdom as occurring on the same day, probably in order to produce a greater effect upon the mind of the reader. To this end, while certain accounts of the 10 martyrs' deaths from these sources are more fragmented than others, they seem to preserve a more historically accurate account of the deaths themselves. The Avot of Rabbi Natan states that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and Ishmael ben Elisha HaKohen were executed while in Roman captivity, having drawn lots to determine who would be first to die. When the lots fell on Shimon, he was swiftly decapitated, and as Ishmael grieved over his friend's death, he was quickly decapitated as well. The deaths of Rabbi Akiva and Hanina ben Tradion are consistent over practically every source, including the embellished accounts in El Ezkara. All that can be gleaned of the execution of Chutzpit, the interpreter, from historical sources is that he was dismembered, either during or after his execution, as several sages apparently opined that the sight of Chutzpit's detached tongue lying in the dirt was one of the reasons for Elisha ben Abuya's apostasy. Likewise, it appears that neither Hanina ben Hakanai or Yeshevav, the scribe, were counted among the 10 martyrs until several centuries after their deaths. No contemporary work dealing with their martyrdom mentioned them. The name Judah ben Dama does not appear in history before the El Ezkara. However, Bachya ben Asher wrote that one Elazar ben Dama was apparently ordered to be executed by the same decree which sentenced Shimon ben Gamliel, Ishmael ben Elisha HaKohen, and Judah ben Baba to death. However, even this seems to be inaccurate, as Elazar's death is attributed to a venomous snake bite in an infamous narrative associated with Jacob the Heretic. Who's Jacob the Heretic? I did not know about Jacob the Heretic. I will find out about Jacob the Heretic after this. It wasn't me. I wasn't me.
This is the year 2000, not the year 200.
Yes. And among other things, Bachia attributed this decree to the Caesar Lupinus, a Roman emperor who doesn't appear to have ever existed. Judah ben Baba, despite being listed among the 10 martyrs, does not appear to have been executed by order of the emperor himself, though he was in essence martyred nonetheless. As opposed to an execution, the Talmud relates that Judah was caught in the act of ordaining his students by Roman soldiers, and himself, being an old man, commanded his students to flee and leave him behind, at which point the soldiers killed him using their javelins. Ultimately, despite contemporary sources maintaining that 10 great scholars have been martyred by the Romans, only 6 of the traditional martyrs seem to have been genuinely martyred. The identities of some of the lesser-known martyrs are also inconsistently reported. In some sources, Yosef ben Chalafta, Rabbi Tarfon, or Elazar ben Harsum, have no idea who this guy is. Elazar ben Charsum. Okay. Are listed in place of Elazar ben Shamua. Simeon ben Azai is listed in place of Hanina ben Hakinai. And Judah the baker, Rabbi Yehuda HaNachtom, or Hanina Sigan Kohakonim are listed in place of Judah ben Dama. So that's more than I ever knew about the 10 martyrs. Where were we? I must say that I cry every year reading about Rabbi Ishmael. Yeah, people crying about the... yes, no, that is a Nusach Sephard, Elijah. That is not Sephardic. Nusach Sephard is used by Hasidim, not by Sephardim, not by the Mizrahi. Sorry, you're just wrong. Okay. What? This is horrific. Yeah, it is. Terrible bedtime story. Sorry. The reason that Romans did it was for something that had happened so long ago, just an excuse for terror. Yeah, I mean, the Romans were not very kind to the Jews, especially after the thing. So what are you trying to tell me? I have no idea what you're trying to tell me. When you find yourself in your readings. Oh, you mean thing. What were you trying to say? I'm the goober. You say what you're trying to say, Mr. Goober. Anyway, let's find Jacob the heretic. Who is this Jacob the heretic? Jacob the heretic is the name given to a 2nd century heretic, whose doings were used as examples in a few passages of the Tosefta and Talmud to illustrate laws relating to dealing with heresy.
What's Tosefta?
The Tosefta is a collection of Tanaitic statements that were excluded from the Mishnah by Rabbi Judah the Prince.
What are Tosefis?
The Tosafists were a school of a school founded by the the son-in-laws and grandchildren of Rashi, who wrote a commentary on Rashi in the Talmud, which is printed on the page. So, famous joke. What do Rashi and his grandchildren have in common? They're always on the same page. Get it?
Oh my
They're
gosh.
always
Oh
on
my
the same page.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh. Yeah. Let's see what. Oh, okay. I thought you were. Yeah. Do you really want me to read Ela Eskara? It's really hard Hebrew and it actually Aramaic, and I am no chazan. Ela Eskara v'nafshi alai ashpacha ki balauni zedim ka'uga bli hafucha. Ki beyamei hasar lo alta arucha la asara harugei malucha. Belomdo sefer mipi meshule aramat. V'hevin v'diktek bedat reshumat. Upatach biv'ele hamishpatim v'chashav mezimat. V'gonev ish umacharo v'nimtza beyado mot yumat. Yeah, it's really long. And yeah, I They don't have the English translation? They must have the English translation. Really? They didn't bother translating?
There's a lot of stuff on Safari that's not translated.
Well, get to it. Why aren't you translating all this stuff?
I don't speak Jewish. I'm sorry.
A school of sophists who were really into toes. Funny. Yeah, it doesn't have the English. And translating it would be very, very difficult. It is poetic, and it rhymes, and yeah.
Back to the heretic.
Back to the heretic. We will go back to the heretic. We are back to the heretic. Tosefta Chulin 2:22 through 23 tells how Rabbi Elazar ben Dama was bitten by a snake. Jacob came to heal him in the name of Yeshu ben Pandera.
What are you looking at me for?
Do you know who Yeshu ben Pandera is?
Yeshu, the son of Pandera.
Yeah.
Pandera means what? The world or something?
No. Pandera is, it's apparently a Roman name. James Tabor actually does believe that, okay, Orthodox Christians, please cover your ears. Try not to be very offended. I mean no harm. James Tabor believes Mary was likely raped by Pandera, and Jesus was known as Jesus ben Pandera because he was a mamzer. He was the son of his mom was raped.
Bastard.
Yeah. And so he actually believes that he's found the grave of Pandera, Jesus' father, actual father. Yeah.
I mean, he believes that James also.
Yeah, he finds things, he likes them, he believes in them. That's kind of James Tabor's modus operandi. But anyway, so this Jacob the heretic was, this story I had heard, but because I was looking at stories that some people claim are referring to Jesus in the most rabbis that I know would say Yeshu ben Pandera was probably somebody other than Yeshu Hanotzri, but other people are, especially historians, are of the opinion that these are various names for Jesus in Jewish literature. Anyway, Rabbi Ishmael tells Rabbi Elazar that Jacob is not allowed to heal. Rabbi Elazar insists that it is allowed, but dies before he is able to provide proof. Rabbi Ishmael comments that Rabbi Elazar is fortunate to have died before breaking the law, and quotes Ecclesiastes 10:8, "He who breaks a fence will be bitten by a snake."
You didn't break the fence, though. Oh.
No, a different fence. Fence is used to refer to the decrees of the sages meant to protect Jews from situations where they may unwittingly break a commandment. Typically, Jews are allowed to break the laws in order to save a life. Here, Rabbi Ishmael teaches that one should rather die than traffic with heretics, meaning the Jerusalem Talmud Avodah Zarah 224.1 and Babylonian Talmud Avodah Zarah 27b provide a similar account to Cholin.
Look at that. How am I supposed to find anything when you have 224.1? Look at that.
The Jerusalem Talmud is really difficult. Well, it refers to particular. I mean, I guess we could probably find it on Safaria, but I don't think they use that same thing. Okay, so you go Talmud.
It's not even standardized?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's
Oh
not.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
So you go Talmud and you switch from Babylonian to Jerusalem. Avodah Zarah is clearly in Seder Nasikin. So you go down to Seder Nezikin and found Avodah Zarah,
Ah.
right? And what was the citation?
224.1.
2:2. So chapter 2. Will that do it? Well, we'll see.
We'll find out.
4. See, 4 is pretty long, right? And so they said 4.1, so they probably mean the first halacha. So we'll read it in English because the Jerusalem Talmud is famously very difficult. Hold on, no, is this? It says 10b. There are different. Yeah, we'll see if this is here. The colleagues in the name of Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, anything inside the lips of one heals on the Sabbath. Rabbi Zera objected, did we not state a person having a toothache should not suck vinegar with them? Is this not inside from the lips? What?
I don't think it's in this one.
You sure?
Look at it.
Maybe not. You know what? We could just search for Jacob the heretic. Yaakov. Let's see if that finds it. Talmud only. Jerusalem Talmud. That's in Pesachim, and that's not Yaakov Hamin. Hold on. This might. Let me see if there's a Hebrew version of this. Resets. Is there a Hebrew version? Languages. Hebrew. There we go. Yaakov Ish Kafar Sachni. That's how it's put. Where is he? But Talmud Yerushalmi. Where? Talmud Yerushalmi Masechet Shabbat. Perek Yud Dalad Halacha Dalad. Misaparsha Nachash Nashach. Yeah, they must have given the wrong thing from the Jerusalem Talmud. Talmud Bavli, Masechet Avodah Zarah. Megillat Kohelet. Yeah, they must have given the wrong. What should we call it? Yeah, because here it's Talmud Yerushalmi Shabbat 14:4. Let's go to. Okay, once again. So Talmud, Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Shabbat is obviously in holidays. It's the first one. And what was it?
4.
Chapter 4, what?
I don't know.
Let's go back and see. Talmud Yerushalmi. No. Chapter 14.
14.
Chapter 14, Halacha 4. Let's see. What situation stated. It's very similar to that other one.
Yeah.
But what is where? Yeah, very similar to the other one, but
Yeah.
this one, where?
Keep going.
I. Well, there's a Jacob.
There we are. No?
Aha! His grandson suffered from choking. There came one that whispered something in the name of Jesus ben Pandera, and he could breathe. When he left, he asked him, "What did you say over him?" He answered, "Such and such words." He said, "It would have been better for him that he died and not heard these words, it happened to him like an erroneous order from a ruler. So is that supposed to be this Rabbi Jacob? Rabbi Joshua ben Levi's son? Don't know what to tell you. Finding things in Jerusalem Talmud is not easy.
I mean, nobody reads anyway, right? So
The Jerusalem Talmud, most people don't have copies of the Jerusalem Talmud in their home. In fact, I would say most yeshivas don't have a copy of the Jerusalem Talmud pretty much anywhere.
Babylon more holy than Jerusalem?
No, the Babylonian Talmud is much later than the Jerusalem Talmud, and it has more sections and it was more widely studied. It is the basis of much. So the reason the Jerusalem Talmud came back into vogue is because it has the agricultural laws in it, which the Babylonian Talmud doesn't have. Okay, where were we? Connie, you're so funny. Okay.
Learn Hebrew, you'll be that much closer to Monday.
You will.
It's true.
Another Jacob with Jesus. You Jacobs are obsessed with Jesus, apparently. Not sure what that would make him a mamzer. Wasn't Pandera a Roman soldier? Yeah, that's a good. No, well, doesn't that? I was actually wondering the same question. If she was married and she was raped by a Gentile and had a child, the child, I would believe, is a mamzer. I think is a mamzer, isn't it?
But wasn't she like not married? She was like just betrothed or something?
Betrothed is the same thing.
Okay.
It requires a divorce. Yes. Rabbi David Bar Chaim, please don't quote David Bar Chaim, supports using the Jerusalem Talmud over the Bavli. He would. And when he speaks, I sit my funny. Lol, I was about to bring this up. Really? You really need to? The Yerushalmi is so confusing you can't even find the passage. This is true. Machon Shirlo is definitely an interesting channel, highly autistic. Yeah, autistic is one word for it. The Vilna Gaon was known for studying the Yerushalmi. Yeah, actually, a lot of people, the Rebbe actually, I think, would quote the Yerushalmi extensively as well. I believe he is the one that popularized it. The study of the Jerusalem Talmud gained greatly in popularity once people started moving to Israel and having to deal with the agricultural laws. Okay, you people are tougher than I am. I'm going to bed now. Good night. Yeah, I should have gone to bed 20 minutes ago. I think you're confusing different stories in the Gemara. There's one Yeshu who's the product of Zanus, if I recall correctly. There are various stories which could possibly be relating actually historical. I personally believe that the Jesus people talk about is a palimpsest of various
Jesus.
yeah, Jesus. Yeah, exactly. I believe there were many of them. Wow, Charlie. You never show up. How you doing, Charlie? It's late at night. You should be in bed. You're in Iowa. There's nothing in Iowa at 2 a.m. But I'm glad to hear you are alive, Charlie. I may end the stream though.
We're not going to hear more from Jacob the Heretic.
What more is there to say about
We
Jacob the
went
Heretic?
over one story. Like, is there more to this guy? Did he have like a fascination with the agricultural laws, or?
Fine. We'll finish reading about Jacob the Heretic. People are doing snus when you need to start doing snus.
Not funny. More story.
I am not even sure what he's trying to say. Okay, back to Jacob the Heretic. You read. Where were we? Jacob prepares medicine for a leg.
Avodah Zarah 28a in the Babylonian Talmud continues the discussion, which included the above example and again mentions Jacob. This time noting that he prepared medicine for the leg of Rabbi Abahu, a distinguished man. The name Jacob the Meme for him comes from this passage. What does meme mean?
Mean means sectarian. Trey wants to come on. Should I let him on?
Go for it.
But he's Trey.
Yeah.
I don't like Trey. And I should probably restore Trey's access to StreamYard. He's not nearly as bad as he used to be. Yard. Where is that Trey guy? Members. Do I have a seat for Trey? I do have a seat for Trey. What is Trey's email address? Don't say it out loud. There's Trey's email address.
XX Trey Buddy at 58.com. What?
58.com.
Yeah. It's the,
There you go.
That's
You
the-
have
what's
whatchamacallit
poppin',
again. Hey,
Hello, what's this?
this is Jacob the Heretic
Oh,
on Wikipedia.
so that's just you? I made a Wikipedia page about you?
Apparently.
Am I interrupting anything on the stream, or are you kind of just vibing?
I was about to actually end the stream, but then Charlie showed up, and then you showed up. How was
Okay.
your weekend?
It was good, but there's something very pressing. Could you please look in Calvinist dispensationalism, that channel real quick? I think there's, we talk about new perspectives on Paul. I think we got a new perspectives on Calvin. Check it out.
Okay, let's see what's going on here.
Perspectives.
New perspectives on Calvin. Calvinism's most infamous. What book is this?
Darwin's Cathedral by David Sloan Wilson.
Isn't he like some sort of Christian?
Nope, atheist.
Is
Read it.
that worse or better than a Christian? Okay. Calvinism's most infamous deed was the execution of Michael Servetus, 1511 to 1553, for heresy. Calvin has often been blamed directly for this deed, but most Calvin scholars agree that he was part of a broader consensus in which, if anything, he played a moderating role. That's bullshit. Servetus initially was welcomed by other reformers, but he ultimately alienated them with his attacks on core Christian doctrines. First, Okal, yeah, and then, hosted and engaged him in long dialogues, only to terminate their associations in exasperation. His book, The Errors of the Trinity, was banned in Strasbourg and Basel. Ultimately, Servetus was obliged to leave the Rhine country for France, where he masqueraded for 20 years as a Catholic under the assumed name of Michel de Villeneuve. I think that's how it's spelled. Said, studying medicine and supporting himself as a physician, editor, and proofreader. In an edition of Ptolemy's Geography that he helped to produce, he included a comment by a Dutch scholar that Palestine, far from being a land flowing with milk and honey, was uncultivated and sterile. This innocent act would later come back to haunt him. Dun dun dun. Behind his Catholic facade, Servetus continued to think and write with undiminished zeal, and eventually initiated a dialogue with Calvin, using a publisher as a go-between. His first letter displayed the same patronizing arrogance that alienated the other reformers. As if any of the other reformers didn't display patronizing arrogance. Like, this is the character assassination on the holy martyr
Continue.
Michael Servetus.
Continue.
May
Continue.
God
We're not done.
avenge his
Continue.
blood.
We're not done. Stop trying to poison the well. Continue.
Calvin did not mince words in his 19-page reply. There is no honesty in you, nor plain dealing worthy of a liberal spirit. You are ridiculous and unreasonable. He sent a copy of the Institutes, which was returned annotated with insulting comments. Servetus wrote over 30 letters to Calvin before the latter called an end to the relationship. In a letter to Farel that he wrote, Servetus has recently written to me, and to his letters has joined a long volume of his ravings. If I consent, he will come here. But I do not wish to pledge my word, for if he comes, and my authority is worth anything, I shall not suffer him to leave alive. That doesn't sound very...
Continue. Continue.
Servetus managed to find a publisher for his ravings, in quotes, scare quotes, I must say, which quickly led to his imprisonment in France. A Genevan publisher and friend of Calvin was instrumental in his conviction, using some of Calvin's letters as evidence. Calvin's direct role in the affair is unclear. In any case, Servetus escaped from prison and turned up in Geneva 4 months later, where he was recognized and again imprisoned. It is not known why Servetus traveled to Geneva. One theory is that he was plotting with Calvin's opponents for his overthrow. This is bullshit.
Continue.
It's bullshit. I am allowed to say it's bullshit.
Okay.
In any case, in the ensuing trial, Servetus allied himself as closely as possible with Calvin's powerful enemies, not powerful enough, who in turn saw their chance to attack Calvin on his own theological turf. The trial seemed to hinge on theological issues such as the doctrine of the Trinity. Let me get the other page up. Infant baptism and the scandalous suggestion that Palestine was not a land flowing with milk and honey. In reality, it was a battle for the moral high ground, the only basis for authority that Calvin and his church ever had. Just as the decision-making circle within Calvin's church was widening for the most controversial issues, the verdict for the trial of Servetus was ultimately referred to Protestant churches outside the city of Geneva. All of them condemned Servetus, although without specifying the nature of the punishment. Calvin argued for a less cruel form of execution.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority decision was for Servetus to be burnt at the stake. Calvin certainly played a role in the death of Servetus, but it is a gross distortion to suggest that he was solely responsible or that he imposed his will upon others against the background of his times. 2 years later, in 1555, Perrin's opposition to the church erupted in a melee that led to his expulsion and the execution of 4 of his associates. The executioner botched his job and caused a more agonizing death than intended, prompting Calvin to observe that their extra suffering may have been God's will. Calvin was not a paragon of virtue. Yeah, that's true. He was a mass murderer. But his moral failings occurred in exactly the context predicted by multi-level selection theory. Oh, God. An evolutionary social control within groups and conduct toward members of other groups. Oh, how, like, this is supposed to be a vindication of that murderer?
Yeah, but again, it's like I kind of think like Servetus, like Servetus had like knew what was going to happen,
Yes.
and like he could have just released his memoirs after he died, but he
He,
decided to
he was
basically.
actually offered, after he was sentenced to death, he was offered to be let go if he would just recant, and he refused because he believed in God, unlike Calvin.
He also went to the place of his own execution after he'd already been arrested.
Yeah,
After
he
all
picked
these
up
things,
his cross. He picked up his cross and went to Jerusalem, just as Jesus did, just as Peter did, as Paul supposedly did, as a Christian should, because he
but
was a
so
Christian.
but again, he also would have had to recount that the land of Palestine was not a basically
That
land of flowing milk and honey.
uh,
It was not only on Unitarian issues.
it was okay. First of all,
So if
this
it
is a
wasn't
highly
Calvin, it would have
biased.
been Martin Luther. It would have been
For
any of the other reformers.
Trey,
Yes.
first, this was a highly biased account. Second, we have the records of the trials. He was convicted on the one issue of being a Trinitarian, and he was offered to recant. And just like a good monotheist should, he preferred to die than to submit to 3 gods. The holy martyr, Michael Servetus, may God avenge his blood.
Do you really think? Okay, so Calvin was merciful that he was going to execute him, but
With a
even
sword rather than with, yeah, that's mercy. No,
okay,
that's being a bad Christian.
I think it's exactly in line with
Calvin
pretty
came up
much.
with his own beliefs, and when some other guy does it, oh, the horror.
Yeah,
It's perfectly in line with the Old Testament
and
of executing heretics.
Calvin's, no, what are you talking about? What? Where?
Do I really have to look up the scripture?
Yeah, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Something, suffer not the witch to live.
Like the idea that a Christian 2,000 years after supposedly Jesus was 1,500 years after Jesus supposedly was put to death, like unjustly, for like, and the Sanhedrin in the Gospel of John says, by our law we can put no man to death. Like, we've been through this a billion times, Trey. No Jew would have put him to death. No good Christian would have put him to death. It was merely the fact that he believed in one God, which made the Trinitarians, yeah.
So, I just like to go round about it, right? Because, again, it's your Bible, not mine. Okay.
Yeah,
At the very
thank you.
least, if you accept Maimonides and you say that it was God's will to create Christianity, God
Yeah.
could have at least, gave a little bit of extra context to the scriptures we both know about basically stoning heretics.
What are you talking about, Trey? Like,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Trey,
I'm gonna
there
find
is
it.
perfect context for Jew and Gentile. There is perfect context. It is very clear to anybody who does not want to misunderstand. Hello, Dr. Shara. How did you just wake up? Oh, you got back from whatchamacallit? Why there's 5 of us in Los Angeles arguing on the internet. What is like
Who's Dr.
Stoning
Shara? Is that
Heretics
Marcus?
is the name of Chezi's band. That's hilarious. And Elijah complaining. Elijah, you are literally 10 feet to the north of us right now. And you're on the internet arguing.
That's right.
And
You
and
can't complain.
Trey is literally 10 feet to the south of us. So like the 4 of us could literally walk. Are you actually sick? I'm sorry.
Get some lozenges here. They're really good.
We do have lozenges, but
I've eaten almost all of them.
and there's a CVS between the 2 of us. And it's actually the CVS where I got these lozenges. Oh, and if you need a humidifier, I have one. Marcus slept in the airport. Dr.
Oh yeah, he
Shara,
did.
you are a young man. Okay. It is going to be midnight soon.
No more Jacob the Heretic.
If
One
you
more
want to
story,
stay
one
up
more
and
story, one
you
more
can
story,
you
one
can
more
stay
story, one
up
story.
and
The last one
read
was just
about
like,
Jacob
oh,
the
he
Heretic.
mixed the medicine.
You want to read about Jacob the Heretic. Your boy Andrew here wants to read about Jacob the Heretic.
Yeah.
Okay. The arrest of Eleazar ben Harkinas.
We're done.
Yeah, the Calvinist stuff is silly.
Right, but again, Calvin, like
Calvin
Calvin
was
is
a
not.
mass murderer. It wasn't just one
Calvin is
person.
not needed. Calvin is not needed pretty much for Servetus to have died. He would have died probably in France or somewhere else.
It's possible that somebody else. I mean, Martin Luther wrote a letter to Calvin congratulating him on murdering Servetus.
Right.
And yeah, the Catholics quite likely would have done it as well. But that just shows you that Christianity is wrong.
Why?
Because there's one God, and Christians kill people who believe in one God.
Alright. Tosefta Hulin 224 tells how Rabbi Eliezer was once arrested and charged with minut. I don't know what that means.
Minute is schisming.
Okay.
Such a dumb thing.
When the chief judge, Hegemon, interrogated him, the rabbi answered that he trusted the judge. Okay.
Anyways, I at least want to talk about North Estuary if I can, even though it's late.
Shut up.
I'll let
I'm
you know.
talking about Jacob the heretic. Come on. Give me a moment. Let me finish this one. All right. Although Rabbi Eliezer was referring to God, the judge interpreted him to be referring to the judge himself and freed the rabbi. Hey, yo. The remainder of the account concerns why Rabbi Eliezer was arrested in the first place. Akiva suggests that he was perhaps one of the Minim who had spoken a word of Manuth to him and that it had pleased him. He's saying that Akiva is the sectarian? Brahma. I don't know. Rabbi Eliezer recalls that this was indeed the case. He had met Jacob at the edge of town of Saknin in the streets of Sepphoris, who spoke to him a word of Manuth in the name of Yeshua ben Pandera, which had pleased him. He's saying Akiva is a secret heretic who told Rabbi Eliezer. Based. All right. Avodah Zarah 16b to 17a in the Babylonian Talmud essentially repeats the account and adds additional material. It says that Jacob quoted Deuteronomy 23:19, "You shall not bring the fee of a whore or the price of a dog in the house of the Lord your God in fulfillment of any vow. Huh? Alright, I don't understand what that is. Jacob says this was taught by Yeshua. Jacob then asked Eliezer whether it was permissible to use a whore's money to build a toilet for the high priest. When Rabbi Eliezer did not reply, Jacob quoted Micah, for they were amassed from whore's fees, and they shall become whore's fees again.
This was the teaching that had pleased Rabbi Eliezer.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's Jacob the heretic for you.
Yeah.
What did you want to say, Trey?
I did your bidding, Master. I shouted out Fountain of Comfort, and there should be a live stream that where everybody says Fountain of Comfort on stage.
Really? That's funny.
Yes. Everyone was very mad at me.
Who was everyone?
Well, so they had a questions and answers, and I
Yeah.
submitted a question. Have you heard of Fountain of Comfort? And would you please donate to Fountain of Comfort?
Oh my gosh.
And then they read the question, and then Paul, who's not on stage, stands up and says, Trey.
The first question was all right. The second question, maybe not so much.
Well, when is the stuff going to be online?
I'm not sure, but I know it was recorded, so.
Well, I wasn't there, so it wasn't my fault. And by the way, that weekend I went on was awesome. I think you actually should go.
We'll see. We had Rafe Kelly. We did all the, we were literally joking, me and Marcus, yo, we're doing all the things that, Jacob was talking about. Like, we're doing push-ups. We're doing, all this, waving our hands stuff,
Okay. The weekend I went to, I won't talk too much about it, but it was actually very cathartic. I highly recommend it.
Well, maybe next year,
Maybe.
Man, how come I never hear people talking about catharsis? All these
Tarsus?
Okay, I'm going to bed.
catharsis.
Good night, though. See you later.
It was nice meeting you. Thank
It
you.
was popping.
There's
Like,
catharsis. Where did you get
what's
atharsis?
the opposite of catharsis? See, nobody talks about it. How am I supposed to know?
There is no. I
Everyone's
don't.
out here talking about catharsis. What happened?
What is the opposite of catharsis? Decomposition, rotting, rot, putrefaction. There you go.
These people, I tell you.
Yeah, I guess so. You have cathode. So this guy is saying cathode and anode. So it should be catharsis and anarthis. Anarsis?
No, for me, I just said atharsis.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Jacob went to a Freemason camping trip, kind of. It comes from Greek meaning cleaning. I wake up with 1 hour left in a deadline. See you later. Have fun. Yeah, I actually got home enough to actually do my assignment. Okay, I am leaving you guys. Have fun. Good night. Don't do anything I would do. Why are there... Oh, it's only 13 people watching. X has the worst numbers. There's no way. Its numbers are off. Okay, later. Good night.